when I used to also like live in Australia for like 6 months as an exchange student, and like I hung out with like a lot of comedians, and I'm sure you already see where this is going. And like I don't really mind, but like when they just like try to directly just be like, oh, you thought my name was Tony? Well, I thought your name was like Sum or like whatever. Then it's just like, all right, dude, like it does get kind of annoying, but I always end up brushing it off because I know they're just.
And now you're listening to Mime Time.
Oh, baby, good gravy. Today we got Sangdon Park. Sangdon Park is a talented beatboxer comedian who I met years ago while doing stand-up comedy. He spent a big chunk of his childhood in America before moving back to Korea. And he's one of my best friends, one of my best tongsangs. I love this guy, and I know you will too. This episode is part 1. Part 2 will come out next week, where we talk about Sang's mom. That's right, we're going to talk all about his mom. But today, we'll talk more about his journey of growing up in Korea, growing up in America, and then coming back to Korea to fit into the society. And I hope you get something out of it. If you relate to any of the things we say in this episode, please let me know. Please reach out and let me know what you think. I would really appreciate it. And if you know anyone who would relate, connect, or get something out of this episode, maybe they're 유학생 or someone who studied abroad in the West only to come back to Asia, please share it with them. If you like this content, please subscribe if you haven't already and leave a positive review. It really helps the show out and helps other listeners like you come and connect hard with the Mime Time show, with the Mime Time topics that we're covering. As always, your feedback is encouraged and it means a lot to me. I've been getting so much good feedback and it just keeps making me want to go at it hard with Mime Time. So please keep it up and I'll keep it up hard. You know what time it is? It's Mime Time. Welcome, Mime Timers, to another episode of Mime Time. What's good? Today we have a very dope guest. He's one of my best tongsangs and friends in the country. His name is Sangdon Park. Hello, Sangdon. How are you?
Hello, Mime Time. Thank you for having me. I'm doing all right. I have like break from my work this week, so I'm pretty relaxed, pretty chill.
What a bum.
So that's good. Yeah. Oh my God. I'm trying to quit caffeine and I've been drinking decaf and I've just lost my soul. Decaf sucks ass. There's nothing in there. You can't feel anything. There's not that caffeine rush. I've just been, yeah. So, but other than that, it's all good. How about you?
How's decaffeination been going for you? Like, how long have you been drinking coffee? And then when did you stop drinking coffee?
Yeah. Okay. So I've been drinking coffee. I've been drinking coffee for like 4 or 5 years. Pretty steadily, just progressively more because it's addictive. And when you start to work a lot, you kind of use it as like a dependency. And I don't like quit cold turkey. I'll just like stop for like a week and then I'll have like a coffee, or if I'm working out, like maybe an energy drink. Definitely not a good idea because it drives you crazy. But that's what I'll do. Like I'll just try not to drink any caffeine for like a week, and then like at the end of the week I'll reward myself. And I've been doing that for like 2 weeks. So yeah, that's how long I've been doing it.
Yeah, and the reason why I ask is because I watched some videos on caffeine and how bad it is for you. And so I think like the 7 days leading up to my birthday and even a couple of days beforehand, I basically quit cold turkey. I quit caffeine cold turkey. Yeah. And I was in quarantine for a week leading up to my birthday. So I just I was just like, well, I don't need to like go out or be as active. So I'm just going to take this time to stay in my room and not drink coffee and not eat as well. It was a 7-day water fast.
Jesus,
so it was kind of intense. And then I gave myself permission to just like sleep, because if you're addicted, like I've been drinking coffee, I don't know, almost 10 years and drinking lots of it. And then to stop drinking coffee for like a period of days, all of a sudden you get like all this brain fog and dizziness, whatever.
Yeah.
So I just fasted.
Headache was the worst.
Yeah, I just fasted and I just slept when I wanted to during the day. I would take naps as often as I needed to give myself permission to be a lazy bum. But at the same time, I was fasting and burning ketones, burning body fat. And so I got a lot of work done during that 7 days just being stuck in my room. Yeah. Like nightmare mode, no FAP, no alcohol, no coffee, no food. And it actually wasn't that bad. Like I want to do something I think I want to do like every few months or something, but
bro, you're crazy. That's intense.
But I just want to, I think it's good to bring up, decaffeination to the audience as maybe, just to suggest that maybe something you guys want to look into, because if you're not getting good sleep, then that's like one of the biggest detriments to your productivity and your health, which is what I'm really focused about these days, is not just diet and exercise, of course, but optimizing sleep. Sleep is like the most important thing.
Yeah. That's
good. So good on you for doing that, man. For the audience, I want to ask you basically your whole life story, if you could condense it, but feel free to give the details that you feel are relevant. Where did you grow up and what was life like for you growing up?
For the audience that may know me, again, my name is Sang-Don Park. I was born in South Korea, and I am Korean by birth and by passport. And I immigrated to the United States when I was about 8 or 9 years old. And I stayed there for about 7.5 years consecutively, Florida and Chicago. So that's why I have this accent. And I came back in the summer of 2010, and I graduated from an international high school, and I finished college in Korea. And currently, I'm working as a freelance show host, stand-up comedian, and beatboxer, a musician, which is definitely not going well because of the pandemic, but still all right. And I met Mime through an open mic doing stand-up. Mime used to do stand-up comedy.
I used to think Mime. I could be funny.
You are funny, though. You are. And that's how we got to befriend each other. And we're also coworkers, since I also do English teaching and kindergarten teaching at the moment. So yeah, that's my little fascinating, very cliche life story. But yeah.
Well, it's far from cliche. And remind us again, when you went to America, how old were you?
So I was like 9 years old, 8. So like, I imagine if I went like a year like later, I would have definitely had an accent like, oh, hello. But like I went at the time where I could like absorb the English language in a native like accent. So I just made it. Because some of my Korean American friends, immigrant friends, they have accents. But I was lucky enough to go there at a young age.
Yeah, and we are practically at the same level of fluency, down to the accent or whatever. And I went to America when I was 1. So my brothers, when I was 1, they were 13 and 11 years old. So like you, they went to elementary school. So they got to grow up speaking the language and, be Korean before we went to America. First, you were in Florida?
Yes.
Can I ask, like, why did your parents move to America at the time?
Oh, man. You know what? There's a lot of layers to that question. So that's a great question. But initially we were told that we immigrated to America for better education opportunities and for just overall better opportunities, and which is not wrong, which is definitely true, because I'm very thankful that I can speak English, the international language of the world, and be multicultural and all. But the actual reason, which I'm sure we'll get to, is because he wanted to get away from my crazy fucking biological mother who wouldn't stop, trying to like badger him, and who wouldn't stop badgering him and bothering him. Pretty much to extort money and, and all that sorts. That's actually like one of the legitimate reasons and all.
Wow.
And also
yeah. Yeah. And also what?
Yeah, and also my dad was like, yeah, I think you're going to have trouble making friends. So like, I think going to America would be easier. And I was like, what? Doesn't make any sense. Like, you're going to put me in an environment where I won't be able to socialize, but you think that'll like facilitate me like making friends. And he's like, yeah, you seem like a loser. So that's what he told me.
Well, in a way it worked out, didn't it? Because you did go to America and, receive a better education or whatever, grew up speaking English. And then like you have a bunch of friends now, and, you're well known within the comic community and the beatboxing community as well, I'm sure. And so,
Thank
and you
you.
have a good social circle now. So, and you are a social person as show host. I've been to many of your events that you've hosted. Yeah, I definitely want to get to your biological mom story, but that's really,
Yeah.
really surprising because I didn't know about that. I just figure
Yeah.
it's like somewhat of a typical immigrant story that we go to
Yeah.
America for better opportunities, which is true, but that's very interesting in your case. So in a way, you
Yeah.
should be thankful to your crazy biological mother
Oh
because
yeah. No, I am.
of all the way the life has turned out. But
Yeah.
we'll get to your family in a bit. But growing
Yeah.
up in Florida, what was that like for you? Were you the only Asian kid in your neighborhood?
Yeah, I think you heard one of my jokes where I talk about like white kids and black kids bullying me and how they were like really really mean. And there may be some elements of like like hyperbole in there, but it is very accurate. I did get like I did go to like a working class public school in like a lower middle class neighborhood, and like yeah, I was the only Korean kid, and like there would be like a few Vietnamese kids and all, but it was predominantly white and black. And they would just they wouldn't know, they would just be culturally ignorant. And thinking about it now, it's not their fault. My advanced social studies history teacher in middle school asked me like, "Are you from North or South Korea?" Which just is my favorite question now. But at the moment, I was just genuinely shocked. I was like, "Dude, you're teaching me about American government history. Like, I don't what's going on with you?" But yeah, they commonly call me the Chinese boy, Jackie Chan. And like yeah, I said this in my joke when Virginia Tech shooting happened from a Korean American student. Like a black girl asked me if that was my cousin or not. Those are real. Those are real things that happen. It's really funny. She's like, "Is that your cousin?" I think it might have been. But yeah, so like there was a lot of like what seemed like oh like this was like racism, but I do believe kids are like like they're innocent, they don't know any better. It was out of ignorance, so it's more of a racial like, ignorance as opposed to like racial discrimination, I think. So that is what I went through a lot in Florida because people simply didn't know about like South Korea. We didn't have like Gangnam Style back then or K-pop or all that international culture from South Korea. So yeah, so that I think that is what essentially happened in Florida because it's a lot of like old people going there for retirement, and there aren't that many. It's not really socially updated.
Well, and what about Chicago? Was that similar for you?
Oh no, Chicago was completely different. I went to like definitely a better neighborhood. So like if here's downtown Chicago, I lived in like the suburbs around it, which is pretty nice. And I went to a very good like public school. And like yeah, they knew about Koreans. There was a lot more Koreans there because I told them I was Korean. They're like, "Oh, dude, I love Korean barbecue," and I'm like, "Whoa, you know what that is? That's crazy." Like you know what like bulgogi is? They're like, "Dude, I know, I had it." I was like, "Whoa." So that was like a very different experience. But like to sum it up, like here's how different Florida and Chicago was. Okay, so in middle school, I was adding everybody on MySpace back in the day. I was adding everybody on
MySpace.
MySpace. Yeah, I know. And then I moved to Chicago and I asked people like, "Hey, you got MySpace?" And they were like, "Yeah, sure, we do." And then like one person added me and they immediately posted a status like, "Oh my God, I haven't been on here in like forever." So it's just like really behind. Florida is really behind compared to Chicago.
I see. And growing up, going to school, interacting with other kids and adults in the society, like, did you ever have like really traumatic experiences, whether you call it racial discrimination or people like making fun of you for being Chinese or whatever, calling you Jackie Chan? Like, what was
Yeah.
your attitude and your experience like? Did you like get offended a lot growing up? Did you take it
Oh, yeah.
personally? Like, can you share one of those experiences?
Dude, this black girl made me cry one time in middle school.
Please tell us the
Oh
story.
man, but it was. I mean, it wasn't anything special. Like people would just go, "Hey, Chinese boy," like just casually, just kind of like to insult you because kids are mean, especially back then. Um, and I just got fed up with it. I'm like, stop, like calling me that, stop calling me that. And then I snitched on her like a real man. And to my teacher, yeah, you called me Chinese boy. I didn't like that. And then she was such a great liar. She was like, "I did not say anything. I don't know what he talking about." And she was so aggressive with her lie that, she just didn't get in trouble. And like, I was like, "Oh no, but she did it." And I ended up like crying in class. That was one. Like it wasn't like it's not really traumatizing to think about now, but it's just in my memory. I remember that happening. It's just little things like that. A lot of black kids. This one isn't really traumatizing, but like I realized that kids were so ignorant that like when you want to make fun of an Asian, you just go ching chong, soy sauce, rice, or whatever, right? Something along those lines. But these kids were so ignorant; they weren't making fun of me in like a proper way. They were just like, yeah, that. Like they're just looking at me and like yelling those like weird sounds out, and I was like, that sounds nothing like Korean, but all right. But yeah, those are pretty much about it. But it was definitely annoying during lunchtime because like all the kids are just gathering and eating, and they're just like shitting on you. So that was that was about it. Like really, really traumatizing. Not really, just tidbits of just like insults out of ignorance from that time.
And did you feel like those experiences or being kind of picked on that way, did you feel like that kind of alienated you from connecting with other people, from making friends? I assume you had friends growing up either way.
Yeah, fortunately, I did. But they were just other Korean friends that my mom. It's just a small community. It's like, oh, he's Korean. He should be your friend. Oh, yay! Like back then in America, I'm sure you understand. Like just to meet another Korean, it's just feels different. Like, oh shit, like we look the same. Cool. Like we should be friends. So like they were friends, and so like that was good to like kind of have like a community and such. Sorry, but what was that other part of your question? I kind of forgot.
I mean, that was it basically. Just like how did it impact you growing up and your sense of
Yeah,
self-confidence, if it did at all? Because for
yeah,
me, I took it a bit harder than most people. I think like knowing you and hearing you share like, yeah, like I had an experience where some girl made fun of me and I cried,
yeah.
and like I have experiences like that too, maybe a bit more severe, getting into some fights. But for
Oh,
me, like
okay.
I didn't have like a stable home life, so I couldn't like talk to my parents about what I was going through because their English wasn't that great and I didn't grow up speaking Korean. So for
Yeah,
me, I felt
that
I
must have been
felt
super harsh.
very alone without Korean friends around as well to talk about
Yeah,
these issues. I think maybe a lot of Koreans who grew up in America, like yourself, maybe they went through some shit. Maybe there's some like unpleasant memories, but had maybe a better, stable emotional upbringing. So these things didn't affect them as much.
oh, I see. I see. That's gotta tell me more in detail about that in a bit. But just to add on, because that reminded me, I think it did alienate me initially, but I'm all in all, I am grateful for what it happened. That like all in all it happened. It just allowed me to grow thicker skin. Because if you really try to racially abuse me, it doesn't work at all. Because I've heard all sorts of like slurs and everything. So, I think all in all, it was good for the long run. However, I have to say, in Chicago as well, like one kid, there was like this asshole kid. He also didn't have like a stable family, so I think he just kind of turned into a bully because of like the bad home environment. I remember he was just being aggressive with me, and he just looked at me during recess, and he was like, "You fucking chink," and like it kind of got. I just kind of ignored it at the moment, but like I think like that stuck around with me, and like sometimes like whenever I hear people like say chink and all that like as a joke, it kind of reminds me of it. I wouldn't say it triggers me, but I'm just like, yeah, like I remember that, but like I don't associate any like like I don't get really like belligerent or anything about it, but I do remember like that is that exact moment kind of like kind of just like upsetting me and leaving a memory, I guess.
I just think now it's great that as adults,
Yeah,
especially you and me, we can have a sense of humor about our past and like
yeah,
these stories that at the time, we were like sad or alienated and we cried. But now we can just laugh at it, laugh at ourselves, not take ourselves too seriously. I
yep,
think, and this might be a sensitive issue, and there are lots of people out there with different experiences, but basically
yeah,
some people still take it personally. Some people still, if someone asks like, "Where are you from?" or whatever, it's like, "I'm from San
yeah.
Francisco." I like was born and raised here. I'm just like,
That's a good accent.
look, yeah, like San Francisco is, sure, it's like very multicultural, a bunch of Asians there, a bunch of Koreans there, yada yada yada.
Yeah,
Everyone's
yeah,
cool and
yeah,
accepting. Like it's great,
yeah.
but there's like we're still a minority, and
Definitely.
what I my attitude towards like living in America, living in the society at large and dealing with people is that it's just better not to use that energy anymore to take things so personally. So,
Definitely.
when people ask you like, if you were in the States now, or if, people ask, where are you from? Or maybe they make some non-Korean person like makes some sort of like racial like gesture about your race or something. Like, how do you
Yeah.
respond to that?
I completely agree with that. It's annoying and like because I try to take everything as a joke, but I do definitely understand like also being kind of like like kind of being not triggered, but like just not feeling good if they were to make like a racial like remark.
Mm.
Like I think essentially like when I used to also like live in Australia for like 6 months as an exchange student, and like I hung out with like a lot of comedians, and I'm sure you already see where this is going, but like they would like some jokes like about it is like really funny. And like I don't really mind, but like when they just like try to directly just be like, oh, you thought my name was Tony? Well, I thought your name was like Sung or like whatever. Then it's just like, all right, dude, like it does get kind of annoying, but I always end up brushing it off because I know they're just trying to like like joke around, and I don't think because for me personally, I genuinely think that like no one is like actively trying to be racist and like my race is superior than the others, and just trying to bring down everybody. It's mostly out of ignorance and like curiosity. All in all, I would probably take it lightly. I wouldn't be like super offended. Yeah, I mean like for me, I can't technically do that. I'm from San Francisco, even though I totally could be. I kind of sound like it because everyone thinks I'm from LA here. Like yeah, I have to say no, I'm South Korean. I am Korean, like by citizenship and like by everything. So
when I was a kid, like I didn't have a
yeah,
framework, or I didn't learn from different people's attitudes on maybe how to deal with these kids or these different situations. And I think
yeah,
it's good for us because, again, like you said, we grew thicker skin, and
yeah,
we learned to like maybe not take so personally because a lot of it's just ignorance, right? And a lot of times
yeah,
people aren't just trying to do anything out of maliciousness, but just to maybe I'll just ask a question. They're just curious and like they don't know like
yeah.
maybe a more polite, like a more gentlemanly or ladylike way of going about it. So then you grew up in Florida and then Chicago, and then why did your family move back to Korea?
I think there's a lot of variety of reasons, but I think it just got harder and harder to live there because my dad kept applying for the visa, but he couldn't get it. Getting a visa in America is like honestly winning the lottery, unless from what I know generally, unless you're like your family member is a doctor, lawyer, or something that is like more legitimate or more directly correlated with like society, like it's harder to get a citizenship. My dad owned a convenience store. He was such a stereotypical Asian. Like he ran a convenience store and like he sold egg rolls. Like it's freaking Asian. Yeah, and fried rice. And like, and he would do day trading and he would just, he had a lot of savings back then. So like that's what we mostly lived off on. So it just got financially and more and more difficult to live there. So I think that's why we decided to come back.
I see. And when you came back, how was it adjusting to life in Korea? And how has it been interacting with, say, other family members, relatives, and like the society at large? Like, can you hide the 유학생 / gyopo side of you? Can you hide your Americanness, or do people just tell right away? Please tell us about that.
Holy shit, coming back to Korea was fucking weird. I'm allowed to curse a lot in this podcast. Is that okay?
As much as you want.
Oh, good. Nipple tits. Yeah, no, it was really hard. I remember it was so shocking to see like in South Korea they used to have these like phones where they would have like these like antennas on it. You could take out the antennas. Those. Yeah. You remember those? You could take those out, and I remember seeing those after using like a Verizon flip phone, and I was like, "Whoa, what is that? It's the future!" And I came back, and I stayed at my grandma's house, which is ironically where I'm at currently. But we just stayed here for like a few months. We didn't really do anything because we need some time to like get settled and find a house, find an apartment and stuff. So we just spent a lot of time in the house, and it drove us crazy because I have two younger siblings, and I was like, 14 or 15. And yeah, I would just try to speak Korean, but I was able to speak some of it, but I had a very thick intonation accent. So people would be like, "What is wrong with this guy?" And at that time, there weren't that many, like Korean Americans or like overseas Koreans coming back, just going like, "Oh, hi, I'm more comfortable in English," or whatever. So they would just be like, like what's wrong with your voice or whatever. And I remember walking into a bread. I remember walking to a bread store called Paris Baguette, and I just couldn't say a bread. And they're like, "Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about." And she just kind of like sighed and like packed everything for me and my siblings. And yeah, it was quite a struggle. And then yeah, it was reverse culture shock really hit me hard. So that was difficult at first, just to get used to it. Getting used to public transportation and all, because I lived mostly in the suburbs. That was about it. To condense it, and to answer your second question about could they tell if I was like a Korean from overseas or not? Like initially, yeah, they totally could. They're like, first of all, your fashion sucks. There's this thing, like, as Koreans really try to dress in like a preppy, like kind of way. If you live in Korea, you'll know. If not, like, yeah, they oftentimes they dress up formally just to get some tea or coffee. It's very bizarre, but it is a thing, and they really care about their outer appearance. Yeah, if you're from the suburbs, like, you don't really care about that, so they could tell by that. And yeah, I used to have an accent, and they were like, yeah, just like your whole gesture and behavior is like, so like, like American style. It's like, what, I have a personality? Is that what you're trying to say or something? Like, I'm not passive or something. But yeah, they were totally able to tell. But as time progressed, they wouldn't, now they can't really tell, especially after the military, when I really picked up a lot of my Korean. They're like, yeah, you're just a fat Korean kid. And they, because Korean standards, I'm very overweight. But then when I would tell them, like, yeah, no, I speak English, I lived abroad, they're like, oh, now I could totally see it. That's why, like, you're like this. So yeah.
Oh, so that's why you're weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you just have more honorable, pure kimchi-ness in you, because like I was 1 year old when we went to America and I became a cheeseburger. So I came back to Korea to kimchify my cheeseburger self, to yellowfy my inner Twinkie, but I'm still pretty Twinkie or banana. What would you call it? And so I think it's interesting because you did grow up in Korea, and you went to America, and then you came back. But like, I wouldn't call you yuakseng. I think you're almost, like Korean American like me. I think you're pretty gyopo, and like, I just see you as more of like, you're touching with your Korean side. And, yes, you served in the Korean military and you have a Korean passport, but that still doesn't change like how your personality is formed from those formative years in America, and the way that you look at the world. So do you ever feel confused at times, bro? Like, just like, oh, am I Korean? Am I American? Like, did you feel lost at times in your journey?
Every fucking time. Sorry to cut you off. Every fucking time. I'm just like, you know what? Like, because there's a lot of culture you got to keep up with when you, like, when you are aware of like Western culture, and when you're aware of like Korean culture. They're just like, hey, do you see that one, like Korean drama with that celebrity? Do you know that one Korean idol, K-pop group? And you're like, no, I don't. And then all my American friends are like, have you seen Game of Thrones? And I have not. I heard it sucked at the end, so I won't see it. So I'm sorry, we can't have this conversation right now. I don't know. Do you know the song? I don't know these songs. I don't know that director. I don't know. Don't tell anybody, but I haven't even seen Parasite yet. Oh, that's freaking shameful. Like, I just felt a tingle in my body.
Very dishonorable.
Dude, you get kicked out of this country. But how about you, man? Like, I just keep talking about myself. Like, well, like, do you also feel confused? I'm sure you do. And like, feel like, you don't really have like a sense of belonging often.
The answer is yes and no. Yes, like, that's why I have this fucking podcast, because since I was a kid, I've had such, like, I think I went through a lot of pain and loneliness and depression and confusion. And a big part of that, I just tied to my identity, like my racial ethnicity. Like, what am I? I'm obviously not like a normal American person, but English is my first language. And I go to American school with all the other kids. I'm getting the same education. But when I come home to my dysfunctional Korean household. My parents are yelling at each other and my brothers are fighting and like everyone's yelling at each other. They all like grew up speaking Korean. And so they're all arguing to each other in Korean, but I can't even join in the conversation. So I feel alone even within my own household, which is like a weird experience. I mean, it's weird enough to be like the only Asian kid in your neighborhood, but then you come home and you're the only Korean Asian in your own family that's not even speaking the same tongue. So then I grew up thinking like, what's wrong with me? I must be defective somehow. Maybe this is my fault. Yada yada yada. I wish I was never born Korean or Asian. I wish I was white or black, or at least those kids, they can fight with their parents in the same language, in English. Why is it that my parents are the ones that can't even speak English? Like they don't, and they're busy fighting each other. They're going through their own shit. They have their own emotional trauma that's, manifesting itself in their relationships. And so I just think life is totally unfair. Life is so unfair. I'm the only Asian kid and my parents can't even speak English. This is so unfair. And I can't even speak Korean. What's wrong with me? But that was literally my life. That was seriously, I mean, I'm so overjoyed and amused that like I can make fun of it now, but at the time I really felt this way, like I was a victim. Life is so unfair. I really felt that deep in my soul, like that life was unfair and like life was miserable, and why am I so fucked up? And like I had such low self-confidence as well, and being like pretty chubby. Like I think I used to call myself like really fat, but looking back in some childhood pictures, I wasn't that overweight, maybe a bit more than average, but I made things a lot worse than I had to. And I kind of alienated myself from other people, and like moving from one place, one city to another, one state to another. I always was like reserved when it comes to meeting people. I hated going to school just like everyone else. But yeah, to answer your question, yeah, I still go through it and it's affected who I am. And I think about these issues about identity and who I am and why I turned out this way every single goddamn day of my life. So, and it's just a big pain point for me that it's manifested myself into becoming the best version of myself, to come to Korea, to find my roots. Like, how Korean can I get? How can I learn Korean? I have to learn Korean. I have to prove it to myself that I'm not defective. I have to overcome this life obstacle these challenges that no one else seems to have, that I'm alone. Well, I have to face this on my own, and I have to dress better. I have to become a responsible adult who gets to work on time. I have to be organized and have a direction in my life and all these things. And now I have this podcast. So it's like all those cumulative years of trauma and identity struggle is culminated into you and me having this awesome conversation right now on this podcast, which I love doing because this is like my life's passion and purpose. So in a way, it's worked out. All the pain and all the suffering is like, I do this because I want to help other people get over their bullshit. And so they don't have to take things as personally as I did. There's so many ways to answer your question. The other way I want to answer that question, I know you probably want to respond, but it's like I'm not at peace. Like it's still like I still have this complex, and it still bothers me when say some Korean ajashi like 어느 나라 사람이야, or asking me where I'm from or whatever, something like that, right? It still bothers me, but I've come to a point where like, hey, you know what? I'm in the middle. I will never maybe be 100% American or 100% Korean. I'm somewhere in the middle, and I'm in my own individual life experiences that make me who I am, and I'm mime. This is mime time. And you know what? That's a beautiful thing. And everyone's on their own journey. It's okay to be lost. It's okay to be in the process of finding yourself. So yeah, I'm still finding myself, but at the same time, I have the process. I've made the progress, I should say, to where I'm way more comfortable with who I am, with accepting all of who I am and loving myself like deeply and totally, which reflects in my love and acceptance of my family, of Korean people, Korean culture, and Korean society, even though I think there's a lot of things that are fucked up about it, as well as, American culture and society, even though there are a lot of problems. I'm very humbled and grateful and proud to be part of both in my own mime way.
Oh.
Thanks for asking me.
Of course. No, I didn't want this podcast to be so one-sided. But that's awesome. But I just had a few things to add to that. I think it made you tougher. I think it made you like who you are, and it made you into someone with thick skin and like a high caliber for tolerating bullshit in life. I think it really did, because you're one of the toughest motherfuckers I know. Like I think with your work ethic and like the amount of work that like you put into like making money, networking, all that, you've already become Korean because you practically don't rest. So I think that's very, very yeah, seriously. Like, yeah, for the listeners, like I'm sure you guys, most of you guys know, but mine works hard. Get it?
Hard.
He really, yeah, he really. Oftentimes, I get worried about him like not catching up on any sleep, and it's really real. So, the hustle and like the mind, motivation, the fact that you can, like go on like a cleanse. You said in the beginning of like when we were
Mhm.
saying hi, like no alcohol, no coffee, and like pretty much like no food and all, and like like taking care of yourself. I think that's very impressive. These are all very very difficult things to do and very mentally challenging. I could tell for me, like I could feel that you went through a lot of adversities, and it just shaped you into a stronger person. So I think that's great, man.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like we all go through struggles and we all go through adversity. There are people who probably go through worse experiences or
Yeah,
harder identity struggles in their own personal journey that I can't even begin to comprehend. Like
yeah,
some Korean adoptees or some mixed kids, like half Korean, half whatever,
yeah,
or or people who are just Korean or Korean American that are like just totally different, fucked up life situations, like all kinds of like abuse, could be emotional, physical, sexual, that I
yeah,
can't even begin to comprehend what those people go through. But then they don't never change. Like maybe they never have that catalyst or that positive influence that they stumble across that tells them you can either get bitter or you can get better. You can, keep making excuses for all the shitty things that happen in your life and not take control. Yeah, you can not take control or you can choose to take control. So like that's what I wanted to do. And that's why again I have this podcast so that no people don't have to go through what I went through when I was a kid. I've done a lot of things since I came to Korea, going to open mics and like exploring myself and even hosting open mics, right? Playing guitar, singing, doing spoken word, doing a couple rap songs and doing comedy. Comedy was great. And I think one of the best things about going to comedy back in the day, to Tony's Aussie bar, shout out to Tony if he's
ah,
ever listening to this, is it meeting you, bro? Because I love your energy
thank you.
and like you always made me laugh. And I honestly just enjoy hanging out with people who make me laugh.
Yeah.
So what is it that got you into comedy?
Okay. It's actually not that like it doesn't have like a cool story. Oh, I was inspired by this, one artist. I wish it was like a cool story or anything, but it's not like that at all. I was, I still am. I still, I'm mainly a beatboxer. That's my main talent and my first discovery of, like stage performance, I guess. Because I also like had a musical background, and I've always been doing that throughout my adolescent years. I never knew or like thought about doing any form of comedy. I just knew that I was an attention whore. I was certain of that, and I was doing I was always beatboxing for talent shows in my small international school, and my close friend who I thought would have my back, and she just like looked at me and was like, beatboxing's cool, but I heard it so often, so now it's just old and boring. And I was just like, how I know. And I was like, how dare you speak? How dare you? How dare you? Yeah, so I was really pissed off by that. I was irritated by that. But one in my senior year of high school, my history teacher, Mr. Weeby, showed me a video of Russell Peters doing a set about like a soccer huddle in stand-up comedy, and I saw that and I was like, whoa, that's crazy. And then I started looking up more clips of stand-up comedy, and I saw that it was like over an hour long. And I thought like, oh wow, they're doing this for over an hour and people aren't getting tired of it. So I could totally do this. Definitely can't, but it's what I thought that I could, and I ended up doing stand up comedy for the first time at my school talent show, and it got some laughs, and it just kept going from there. But now I do it because it's something that I genuinely love, and it makes me happy, and makes me happy to know that I can give people joy with something that I love doing. So that's why I keep doing it.
Yeah, and I love your sets, man. And I think you've got a great niche, mixing your beatboxing skills, which is obviously very entertaining, with
Thank you.
your comedy and delivering your punchlines. Like it's I haven't actually seen other people do something quite like that. I see also that you spent a lot of time and energy, like putting on events and doing shows,
Yeah.
and you're performing, like honing your craft, and it's really cool, man. And it's really entertaining. So for the listeners out there, if you haven't seen or heard, like I'll definitely link to a video or two in the description to one of your sets. Funny enough, funny enough. The last interview
Oh,
I had was with Danny Cho.
oh
And
shit.
I mean, for those of you who haven't heard or know about Danny Cho, he's a comedian who's toured the US for quite a number of years, making a living as a comedian. And then he came to tour in Asia. And what he's doing now, as of a few years ago, is teaching budding Korean comedians how to do stand-up comedy, because it's not really part of the Korean culture here. It's not like doing stand-up comedy is like not really a thing. It's like a budding new, almost underground culture that's just
Yeah.
starting to make progress, right? So Danny Cho, being LA born Korean American, knowing all about comedy, brought it to has like not brought it to Korea, but like has been teaching other comedians like how to deliver a joke on stage and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so he does stand up comedy in Korean. Like, have you ever done a set in Korean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, congrats on getting Danny Cho. That's pretty impressive. I know Danny myself, and we've hung out like not at venues like once or twice, but and we've chatted. And I've been meaning to meet up with him, but that is good. Like, yeah, I've done comedy in Korean, and here's the thing: for those of you who may not speak Korean, Korean has a lot of syllables, and when you're talking in a presentation form, whether it's stand up or any sort of form of presentation, you have to speak formally. And when you speak formally, there's more syllables that goes into your sentence. Like in Korean, when you're speaking formally, you just say 안녕하세요. 저는 서울 그 강남 쪽에 살고 있는 28살 박상돈입니다. 반갑습니다. Like that's just like an intro saying like, hi, my name is Sang-don Park. I live in the Gangnam area. I'm 28 years old. Nice to meet you all. Right? That's how you say it in Korean. And in English, you just go, hey. And that's it. So there's the difference of syllables is so stark that it kind of like delays the punchline, I feel like, because there's so many words going in there. So that's how I felt. And can I tell you about my first Korean open mic experience? This is kind of interesting. So just to clear up, when you go to a comedy open mic, you sign up beforehand and you get like a 3 to 5 minute spot. And you just do your thing, whatever. If it sucks, then it sucks because that's an open mic. I went to this Korean open mic for the first time. They're like, well, I wanted to go. I had to apply via online. Like I'm like registering for a course. They do like an email interview, and then I got accepted. And then I went to the Korean open mic. Yeah, I know. And I went there, and they're like, "Okay, so you're the new person. Okay, let me talk to you for a second." And he immediately goes, "Don't talk about the Sewol ship sinking." And I was like, I didn't intend on talking about it, but I won't." And for those of you who don't know, this is a tragedy that happened in South Korea with like high school students on a field trip. The ship sank. So this is a very dark topic, and like apparently people talk about it, and like I don't talk about it. But point of comedy is you can talk about anything. But anyway, I was like, yeah, okay. And then he just goes, "Do you have any jokes about your dick?" And I was like, no. Why do you ask? He's like, if you have jokes about your dick, just tell me right now, like just face to face, and I'll tell you.
Yeah,
if
tell
it's
me
okay or
about your
not."
dick right now.
Yeah, just like say it, everything about your dick. Dick. It's like, okay, I don't have any dick material. And yeah, and I did it a few times. First time I totally bombed, and second time like I did okay, I guess.
That's interesting.
I should do Korean open mic again though.
I mean, I kind of want to try it out. Just hearing Danny Cho talk about it, like I kind of want to do it just to like prove to myself so that I can tell the world that I suck at stand-up comedy in 2 languages. and but just to maybe have the experience, just because that's like a whole nother level. It's one thing to be able to communicate to other people in a language that's like you didn't grow up you speaking.
Yeah.
But it's another thing to want to connect with people, like not just using your language skill, but like wit and humor, and knowing all the subtleties and all that goes involved into telling a joke. I mean, most people wouldn't be able to go in front of a stage and tell a decent set consistently every time. Like no one does that, right? So sometimes I want to do it just to like test my limits, but it's not even just the extra syllables. It's just like a lot of nuance, and it's just like a different culture. Like Korean humor is just different. Yeah, it's just like because American comedy, Western comedy, like the stand-up comedian is talking very informally with his audience.
Yeah.
But whereas in Korean, the difference between 반말 and 존댓말, the informal speech, like it's way different, and it's way more comfortable to speak 반말, the most informal pattern of speech with your friends and with people you're
Yeah.
close to, like your parents and your family members. So because of that familiarity, there's a lot more room for like humor and like,
Yeah.
to like communicate that, maybe like that emotional side that is not as convenient or is like more challenging when you're using more formal speech. So that's why it's even more like amazing that stand-up comedy can be done at all in Korean. But yeah, Danny Cho's, like I've seen some of his sets online and like it's dope. Like it's funny. So it makes me want to try it.
Hilarious. Yeah.
All right, we talked about comedy. Now let's go back into Sang's journey in Korea. How many years has it been since you moved back to Korea now?
Yeah. Since I came back in the summer of 2010, I guess it's almost, I guess it's exactly 11 years.
And do you feel like you've assimilated into the society as much as you can?
Yeah, almost. But I do know that when I hang out with like some of my Korean friends, and by that I mean they're like, "Yo, my foreigner friend Sang's here," like those type of friends. Yeah, I pretty much got it. I think the military really, really condensed it down for me, and made it easier for me to adjust. At the end of the day, I mean, like like my siblings are Korean and all that, and then they grew up here basically, so they've assimilated. So I see that. But all in all, I guess I would say yes. But sometimes I do feel like I still feel like I don't belong.
You still feel like you don't belong. And does that bother you at all?
No, I've just no, I just accept it at this point. I'm like, yeah, you know what, whatever. I'll just be bad in Korean and in English, and it'll just be really like just at these like really like intermediate levels, and I'll go to America and I'll be confused. I'll be in Korean, I'll still be confused. I've accepted it at this point. I don't really care about it as much now, and also it's interesting to see. There's a lot of influx of Korean Americans and like overseas Koreans and like like Koreans who studied abroad coming back into Korea because of the pandemic, and like so there's like a legitimate community.
And if you're one of those Korean Americans or overseas Koreans who have come back to Korea in the recent years, then please hit me up and let me know what your experience has been like. Would love to connect. Anyways, continuing.
Not gonna lie though, sometimes Korean Americans really like disgust me, like with like their nuances. But like, yeah, all in all,
there are nuances like what?
Oh my gosh, dude! Like I used to go to like like academy and for SAT prep, and it was taught by mostly like Gyopos and like Korean Americans who went to like decent schools, and they just came to Korea and they knew that they were very privileged and everything. And I saw one of my teachers at McDonald's just ordering. She was like, "Shanghai spice burger, juiceo," like in the most American, like, oh, gross. The thickest like American accent. The workers like, oh, because in Korean you say Shanghai spice burger, and she just refused to like like localize her Korean. And then like I don't know what it is. So many like I don't know if they're yuaksengs or if they're Korean Americans, but the way they speak their English is so loud. Maybe I'm becoming Korean after all in public transportations, because I used to be in the subways and I would hear like, do you want to go to like Hongdae or Gangnam, like in the loudest voice. It's way louder as opposed to hearing my other, like expat friends, non-Korean friends talk. So that's just something I saw, and I would be really worried. I'm like, do I sound like that? I hope I don't sound like that. And my friends are like, yeah, you totally sound like that. So I'm just like, oh snap.
Yeah, I mean, I see it from both sides because me, and maybe this is just me being like, hey, like I'm westernized, like I'm American, and so I'm not bound by the stiff, rigid, backwards Confucian hierarchical society, and I don't need to be quiet and fit in a box, the same kimchi Korean box like all other Koreans. Like I can have loud conversations in public or whatever and speak English, and like whoever can judge me can go fuck themselves. I've had that attitude before. I know what that feels like, and I understand where it's coming from. So it's just like, just be who you are and speak freely, and you don't need to like what's the word, like inhibit yourself or hide yourself. I understand that. That's one way of looking at it. And then the other side of it is like I've become Koreanized, and like I'm very respectful, and if I speak English, like I do it in a hushed tone on the bus. I don't want necessarily people like to know that I'm speaking English, or I don't want to look inconsiderate of other people, if like by speaking a foreign language. Like it's just the attitude, and maybe it's just because like if I were them, I wouldn't want to hear some foreigner like speak loudly in a foreign language, like obnoxiously. I mean, it's one thing to do it in your own language, but I mean, this might be a racist thing to say, but when it's like a foreigner and you don't even know what they're saying, it just sounds like blah 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 Hongdae blah 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 Gangnam. And so I mean, I can understand it too. See, I see it. So growing up here and like kind of trying to fit in, even though I'll never completely fit in, has made me appreciate both sides, being the foreigner / Gyopo, overseas Korean and American, and just trying to fit into society and just like go with the flow with the society, with everyone else as well. So I wish I could have heard conversations like this, when I first came to Korea, because what I would suggest to people that they consider is that accept that you'll never completely fit in. And I know there's a spectrum of Gyopos, right? There's a spectrum of overseas Koreans. When they come to Korea, they try to learn Korean and they try to make everything perfect and they try to be as Korean as possible. Because they feel some sort of shame or they feel alienated when people recognize that they grew up somewhere else, that they're from another culture or whatever. And then there's some Gyopos, some overseas Koreans who are just like, man, fuck, I ain't even Korean, even though even though maybe they speak like fluent Korean, or they don't, either or. So there's a whole spectrum. And what I want to say is that I argue that I think I have a pretty wholesome, balanced attitude towards the whole thing. Like, yeah, be yourself and be proud of who you are. And, accept that either society that you live in is probably not going to accept you 100%. And it's okay to feel kind of lost. I just wish that someone had told me this years ago. It's okay to feel lost. It's probably better use of your time and energy to not take things so personally. Even though it still bothers me, I try to be the bigger person. So when that taxi agency is like, oh, 어느 나라에서 왔어요? And I'm just like, when they ask me like what country I'm from or whatever, then everyone has, like Danny just said, everyone has like a bad taxi story or like an uncomfortable taxi experience. And so now what I want to do is, instead of like polarizing it or like getting angry or upset or defensive or being like very curt and with us, now like maybe I'll engage them a bit. And I've had some pleasant conversations with taxi drivers, like, yeah, I came to Korea to like learn Korean, and they say, "Oh, 한국말 잘하시네요. Oh, you speak Korean pretty well." I'm like, "Oh, thank you, 감사합니다. Thank you." And then they'll ask me like, "How's your life in Korea?" I'm like, "Oh, I love my life in Korea. I'm really happy to live here." And sometimes I go as far as say like, came here because I wanted to find myself, to learn Korean so I can speak with my parents and to speak with Korean people like you. So I'm very grateful to live here. And then like they get something out of the interaction as well. Like, oh, they met this Gyopo who didn't learn Korean, but then came here to find himself and like he likes living in Korea. Like he seemed like a good dude. So like I want to have more interactions like that rather than like, maybe I'll fuck with him and be like, I came from China or something like that. Before they would ask me if I came from China, but maybe as a joke, sometimes I'll say I came from China. But anyways, yeah. So yes, there are a lot more overseas Korean coming to Korea because of the pandemic and whatnot. And, like if you're listening and you just came to Korea, I would just say like, hey, take it at your own pace. Like, get in touch with your roots as much as you want. It might be better just to accept that people will never accept you for who you are, but that's okay. And also you're not fucking alone. You might think that you're alone. You might feel very lonely, but actually this experience that you've had or I've had, like just not quite fitting in, this happens to anybody who's a minority or a third culture kid, regardless they're Korean American or Chinese Canadian or, Japanese Brazilian. Like it just happens to us all. And so this is not like, we think we're unique, special snowflakes with our and with our victimhood mentality. Like, oh, why me? Life is so unfair. Why didn't I grow up? I wish I was black. I wish I was born black. Yeah, but now, like I'm very happy to be who I am. I'm very grateful and humbled to be Korean and American, and I understand that I'll probably never fit in, and it's not worth my time to try to change the society as a whole or to get upset. I can do my best to educate people and share experiences with individuals. Then maybe they'll have like a more enlightened perspective, right? And maybe they'll like have a better way of like asking questions or whatever. But now I'm just like, I'm way more at peace with who I am and with my level of Koreanness. Even if I get a master's PhD in Korean, I'm studying like ancient like Joseon dynasty history or whatever in Korean. Like I can read ancient Korean texts in Korean, which like even if I could get that like Korean and in like I'm still American as fuck and I'm proud to be so. And like, I can't change that about myself. You can't, the part of I encourage everyone, like, if you want to be a better person, if there's something about your character, you got character flaws and personality, and you want to improve that, you want to change to be a better person, to have a better life, you want to change your life. If you want to change your life for the better, you have to change yourself as a person for the better. So in that regard, that which is in your control, I 100% like that's what this podcast is about. But the other part of this podcast is accept what you can't change about yourself. It's okay. It's going to be lost. It's okay if you're Korean or Korean Japanese, Korean American. You'll always be in the middle. And you know what? You're just better off being a good person, right? That's a big theme. Just in the end, just be a good person, a reliable, responsible, hardworking person. Be smart, give value to other people. And the karmic benefits and rewards you get out of it is going to be so much more that it doesn't matter who you are or where you're from, because people know that you're a good person. They're more likely to trust you and give you job opportunities and, give you nice birthday presents or whatever. And, I've been fortunate to be a good beneficiary of all these things, because I knew deep down inside, even though when I was lost, I want to be a good person. I want to help other people. I want to make other people laugh. That's the kind of person who I want to be. Even if I don't know, am I Korean or am I American or who am I? I know that I want to be a good person. And that's it for today's episode. Stick around for part 2 next week, where we talk about when Sang met his biological mom. What? It's a pretty crazy story, and I'm excited to share it with y'all. And thank you so much for tuning in today. Again, as always, if you got something out of it and you want to support the show, please share the episodes with a friend. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast on whichever platform, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, CastBox, etc., that you're listening to the show on. And if you can, leave a 5-star review or positive review, whatever you can, so that other people can help find the show as well. Thank you so much, Mime Timers. And if you connected to something that we said on this episode, please send us a message, particularly if you're Korean American or overseas Korean who just got back to Korea. Are you adjusting well to the society? Do you feel like you don't fit in? Let me know. I'd love to hear what your experience is like. And until next time, Mime Time.